Viswanathan Anand against Magnus Carlsen, World Chess Championship match, Game 2. In the first game we saw a relatively short draw, so we're all hoping for a fight today, and Anand started with e4. Now that shows he's really up for a fight. When you play e4, you really have to be confident and you're on your toes, you're theoretically well prepared, you're up for a battle. And Carlsen played c6, the so-called Caro-Kann variation. Now, psychologically very interesting indeed, because of course this has been a great favourite of Anand's. So it's as though Anand will have to play against himself. But Anand has played some splendid games against the Caro with the white pieces, and he played, as he usually does, the main line. The bishop comes out. That's the whole idea of this variation, that you bring the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e6. So after h6, of course h5 was threatened, the bishop can now go back into the corner. And Carlsen plays e6, and this is the modern way of playing the position. It was thought previously that you had to play knight d7 to prevent the knight coming into e5, but Carlsen plays with e6. So allowing the knight to come into e5, of course, that threatens the bishop here, so the bishop drops back to h7. Now it looks like black is losing a lot of time here. Now as a little trick, black should not play queen takes d4, because after knight takes f7, well, it's complicated, but the basic idea is, of course, if king takes knight, then bishop g6 is a rather unpleasant discovered attack. So let's go back. Of course, Carlsen wasn't born yesterday. He exchanged off bishops. And, well, the idea of allowing this knight into e5 is that you then play the knight here and offer exchanges. Now, with every exchange that black makes, that's going to help his position. He's rather cramped. He stands behind the first three ranks, so every exchange is going to help black. But of course, Vichy does not exchange. He plays f4, supporting this knight on e5. Now, if this is exchanged, the idea, of course, is that you play f takes e5. Now you have a spearhead for an attack. With this pawn, white has gained a huge space advantage and can build up an attack behind these pawns. Of course, Carlsen isn't going to do that. Well, not immediately anyway. He gave a check. Patzer sees a check, Patzer plays a check. It's actually a very subtle move. Well, firstly, if the bishop comes in the way, then, as I said, exchanges help to ease the congestion in black's position. So this is basically what black wants, and I mean this has been tested several times in top level games. Black shouldn't have any problems here. So Anand plays c3, and the bishop, of course, attacked, has to go back. So why on earth did Carlsen play this? I mean, hasn't white gained something by this? Well, not really. Black wants to provoke this move because sometimes you can see that the queen can be unprotected on the d file, so tactically it can be interesting for black to play like this. But also it could be that if white castles on the queen side, then c3, basically it's the king position is a bit weaker. So it's a very subtle check, this. So both sides develop, and here the first kind of critical moment in the game, because Anand actually has played exactly this position previously this year against the Chinese player Ding Liren. In April he played queen to e2, and Anand won an absolutely superb game after these moves. Well, it was fantastically complicated, but Anand really played an absolutely beautiful game. It was very sharp indeed, but no doubt Carlsen would have had an improvement ready. So after a few minutes thought, Anand actually, instead of playing queen e2 as he did then, castled on the queen side. And Carlsen castled king side. So now we have a double-edged position where players have castled on opposite wings. So, you know, it's very hopeful we're going to get a really sharp struggle today. Anand played knight e4, which is absolutely thematic for this opening. basically the knight moves out of the way, clearing the path for the g-pawn to advance. Now, if white has a couple of moves and that g-pawn gets to g5, you can see, because there's a black pawn on h6, that white can open up a line very easily against the king. And once that happens, in combination with this space advantage, then this can be absolutely deadly. So Carlsen has to react rapidly in this position. But, well, he certainly did react rapidly. He was playing his moves very quickly indeed. Carlsen was clearly still in his opening preparation. He exchanged off pieces. Well, of course, exchanging pieces will lessen the effect of any attack here. And now here is the next critical moment in the game. Anand has a choice here. He can either exchange queens or keep the queens on the board and try to keep some attack on the king. Well, first of all, what happens if the queen retreats here, which would defend the a-pawn? But I really dislike that move, because then the white queen is miles away from the king, and black counterattacks with c5 in the middle of the board very easily, and black has zero problems there. The critical move is queen g4. Threat, bishop takes pawn. Of course, there's a pin here. And while I was analysing this position during the commentary, the live commentary I was giving, and with Yasser, my co-commentator today, and we were looking at some crazy variations, starting with f4, f5. And now, of course, white can exchange pawns here, but it's interesting to see what happens if the queen plunges in with queen g6, so allowing black's queen in, so both sides attacking like crazy here. Mate threatened on g7, the rook has to defend, and now, I mean, we were debating this position. I'm not surprised Anand didn't go in for this, and now we've got a mad situation where both sides charge their pawns down the board, so who's going to be the first to break through? And here, I mean, we were actually looking at a3 for black, but looking at the position later, it turns out that queen b3 is probably a very strong move indeed, preventing white's king escaping up the board. And after, for example, this, if white takes the rook, then actually black's king is safe here, and black breaks through and will probably checkmate white's king. I mean, there are loads of variations here, but I think that just illustrates how probably black is okay here. Well, I say probably. If Carlsen played this very quickly and prepared this, I suspect that black is more than okay. Anand played cautiously, played pragmatically, and I think very sensibly declined to go in for those sharp variations and instead exchanged off queens. But after this, well, it's clear that black really shouldn't have any problems. He has a completely sound pawn structure, no weaknesses in his position at all. Having said that, I don't think white should be in any danger at all. I mean, if white tries to open up lines on the king side, basically the black can always close this very easily. So Anand played h5, I think a good move, gaining space. And this is the point that Anand can, Carlsen, I beg your pardon, Carlsen with black can actually counter-attack very easily on the queen side. I mean, this is a very standard kind of procedure, so-called minority attack, creating a weakness here on the queen side, creating an open line. Of course, white can defend easily because he has his king here well placed on the queen side. But Anand also has a little bit of pressure on the king side. He played very sensibly indeed. So Carlsen building up on the queen side, Anand counterattacking on the king side. Bishop takes h6, threatened again. So Carlsen defends, and now rook f3 attacks the pawn on f7. Carlsen came back. The rook came to g3, so they're repeating the position again. You know what's coming. Carlsen repeated, Anand repeated. Now the only question is, can Black play on in this position? He could play f6 here, but actually I think that Carlsen would risk something by playing like this. For example, here White has a choice. You could play, well, for example, you could take here and put some pressure on those pawns. And here Black's king is a little bit restricted. You know, maybe White has a few chances here. I mean, I think it's probably equal. But I don't think Black should risk anything here. Or instead of taking on f6, you could also play bishop f4. I think if anyone is better here, it could be White. But I don't think there was any reason for Carlsen to risk that. And instead he played king g8. And, well, they're going to repeat the position for the third time. The players agreed a draw here. So, after 2 games, we've had 2, well, slightly disappointing draws, 2 short draws. But I should say that this is very normal for World Championship games. In New York 1995, Anand against Kasparov, they started with 8 draws. In Karpov against Kasparov, 1984-1985 match, they had at one point 17 draws in a row. So what the players are doing is just finding out a little bit of information about each other. And the pressure is building, and I think at some point the pressure will blow. So we're just building up steadily. After the game, Anand said, when you're caught out in preparation, which clearly he was here, it's hard to go for the sharpest lines. Well, I think basically Anand played very sensibly today and just backed out instead of going for these very critical positions. So tomorrow is a free day. They play their 3rd game on Tuesday.